it. Let's try it. Colette, welcome to the Keller Theatre. It's a pleasure having you here. To be honest, when I woke up this morning, I was quite excited and nervous to be meeting you today. I did my homework and read up on a couple of things you've done in the past, and yeah, it sounds incredible. I have to look it up. I wrote it down. So you've won and were shortlisted for several prizes, such as the Papa Tango Prize in 2019, or the Age and Opportunities Emerging Artist Award. You directed the audio production of Fingers Crossed, and your plays continue to be produced internationally in several theatres. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
So before we delve deep into some details, I'd like to know what brought you to writing plays in the first place.
Well, firstly, I want to say it's terrific to be here in the Keller Theatre. Really having a great time here. I've been looked after really well, and it's great to be working with Marty. And I love Geeson too. So yes, I'm having a really good time. I started off in a totally different area, because when I kind of left school, the idea of having a career in the arts, it didn't even dawn on me really. And so then in my kind of early 30s, I went to film school. I had a complete, and I lived in London at the time, and I made films for a while, like short films, and then I worked in documentaries, and I worked in TV for a little bit, on a kind of soap opera. I don't know.
Okay.
And but the problem with trying to make films really is that it takes so long, and you can have a script and you're getting development money, but you go through draft after draft, and by the time you've done like the 10th draft, you kind of think, why am I even interested in this anymore? So I really started writing plays. I lived in London, and I came back to live in Ireland, and I just thought, somebody suggested, well, why don't you write plays? And even though I loved the theatre, I never really thought of working in the theatre. And then I went back and I did a master's in UCD in directing for theatre, and there was a writing module in the same program, and so I took those classes, and I wrote a short play, and then I directed that, and I used to direct my own work when I started off, and then I started doing some work outside of Ireland, in London, and a little bit in the States, so I wasn't able to direct those plays, and I was lucky I got matched up with some, a really good director in London, and I really enjoyed that collaboration. And then in Ireland, one of my plays got chosen for a new writing development week in the New Theatre, who've produced a few of my plays. And one of the requirements was that you had to work with a director. And so they teamed me up with a director, Isel Golden. And it was great. I just really loved it. And so now I would probably choose not to direct my own plays. I really like working with a director. And so I suppose my main reason, sorry, to get back to your question really, is because it's just easier, not easy, but easier to have work produced really, and the time it takes from when you write something to having it actually shown in front of an audience is just quicker. So that's the main reason. And I love live performance. I love the whole rehearsal process. So yeah, that's really, so a kind of a roundabout way I came to be a playwright really.
It's really nice. Would you say that there are any similarities between the films you produced early in your career and your plays, the plays you're writing now?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I'm interested in character. I'm always interested in characters. That's what kind of interests me, and people. So yeah, like when I went to film school, at the beginning, you'd be talking about different genres, and I mean, obviously there's certain kind of films like action films and those kind of films that I wouldn't be interested in making. So yeah, I mean, in many cases, I actually think there is a big crossover between certain kinds of, like say for instance, the kind of plays that Greta Gerwig would have done prior to doing Barbie, or a lot of those in, say, I'm trying to think of some kind of directors, some plays, but there's certain films and you could see them working as plays, and also you could see them on TV really. So really, to a certain extent, it depends on where you can get work produced. Really, for me, it's about where I can get work produced, and yeah, I mean, I think because of the kind of stuff I do, the kind of plays I write, because of character, kind of slice. I say slice of life. That sounds. But I'm always interested in looking at the things in life that don't seem like the big events, but it's a bit like what happens in between big events, really, which is, I think, where most of our lives are lived, really. I don't know if that's kind of clear, but like say, for instance, I wrote a play called When Rachel Met Fiona, which follows a lesbian relationship over maybe 7 years. And, in the course of that period, they meet, they get engaged, they get married, they have kids. But I don't tell it like that. But so I'm like, for instance, in that kind of a story, I wouldn't be really interested in when somebody proposes, when they get married. It's the kind of bits in between that I'm kind of interested in. And it's a bit like with Fingers Crossed too. It's always those, because I think it's like, I'm always looking for authenticity, to those moments in life that it really is where we live our lives. So I suppose that kind of work, I mean, you can see that in cinema, you can see it in TV, you can see it, on the stage. So yeah, I mean, and then also I quite like audio drama. So I've done a bit of audio drama too, which I really enjoy as well. So it's really where you can get your work. For me, it's really about connecting with an audience. I love working with actors, connecting with an audience, and whoever is going to produce my work, then that's that's where I'll go.
All right, okay. You said you directed some plays, you made some films, you write plays. Could you ever imagine being on stage acting?
Absolutely not. No. I'm a dreadful actor. No, I mean, I love actors. I love working with actors. And a lot of playwrights, certainly that I know, are actors. And I always think they have a great advantage, because if they were doing something like this, they'd be much better than I am, because I don't really like performing. I like to be in the background. I don't have any desire to... I don't find this a natural medium for me. I prefer to be writing. I prefer to write all these answers rather than have to talk about them. But no, I've never had any desire to be on stage, and I wouldn't be any good. And I really admire those who can act. Yeah, definitely.
I can actually relate. I used to do photographs and stuff. I prefer being behind the camera than in front.
Always, yeah, totally. So I mean, I hate having my photograph taken. I always look stiff. I can never relax. So and I love taking photographs. But
See, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm that type of person. Yeah.
But well, there's a very special reason you're here today or this week. Your play, Fingers Crossed, will have its premiere here in Gießen with a cast from the Keller Theatre. Actually, just a few days from now. On
Friday.
Yeah,
Friday,
exactly.
yes.
So how does it feel with the big day approaching?
It's kind of funny, because it's a bit like, I kind of don't think, on the one hand, I don't really think about that, because I love for instance, we're rehearsing tonight, and that's the part I really enjoy. I enjoy writing, I enjoy being in the rehearsal room, and that's the bit I really enjoy. And opening night is kind of scary, because suddenly then it's like we have all these people, the audience there, and on the one hand, that's who you write the work for, but sometimes when you're in the process of putting a play on, you've built up such an intense relationship with the the other creatives that you work with, the director, with the cast, and that's the bit I really enjoy the most. But it's kind of I kind of am. It's a bit like your child, though, doing the school play or something. You know what I mean? You do all the prep, and then you just think, well, that's it. They're up there. There's nothing more I can do. So in a way, you just hope that the director, has worked with them enough, and like I'm working with a really good director, Marty, and so you just have faith really in the director, and you have faith in the cast, and you just hope that you just want them to do their best, and that's it. They're up there, and you just have to hope for the best, really. But yeah, it's kind of scary, but I try not to think about it. I just try to, just take it a day at a time.
Yeah,
really,
the process.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I really enjoy.
Yeah, lovely. The play is about two couples. Maybe you can tell us a bit about the play.
Yeah, it's basically about two very different couples who meet in the waiting room of a fertility clinic, or really an infertility clinic. Both couples are going through IVF, and I was kind of interested in the subject, first of all, of infertility, because I think nowadays people think that science can solve anything. You just take a pill and everything can be sorted, and it's not as easy as that. It's tough. The whole business of being having fertility problems, of going through IVF, it's really tough, particularly on women. And so I think that's not really talked about much. It's been talked about more now, but it's funny because like I found, like, with doing this play, like, I don't have any experience myself of fertility. I don't have a biological child. I've never wanted to have children. Why I'm interested in the subject, I do not know. But I write a lot about mothers, and I write a lot about this subject. But it's interesting when you talk to people about it. They say, actually, I've gone, I've had IVF, or we have fertility problems. It's incredible how many people open up to you. So I think it's becoming, much more prevalent now, as people, have decided to have children, particularly for women when they're older. And so I think it's a subject that you don't see much of, and everybody just thinks, oh yeah, it's just easy. Do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, I want to have a kid. I just go through, and it's going to be simple, and it's not simple. And so I wanted to look at that subject really, and I also like the idea of putting two very different couples together. The whole idea of the kind of places where you might meet. That you wouldn't, these couples wouldn't normally come into contact with each other. So I liked that idea. And then also I wanted to have one of the couples a lesbian couple, because again, I think fertility is often seen as being like a heterosexual issue, and which it's not exclusively. And so and also I like presenting lesbian and gay relationships just as is. Not a play about coming out, or not a play about, they just are. And to me, that kind of representation is important, really. So that was another, another reason. But it's funny when you, like, this, it sounds more logical now. Like, when you sit down to write a play, I actually didn't think of any of these things at all. Like, when someone asks me to explain it, this is what I end up saying. But really, when you write, for me, when I write the play, I just have an idea, and then I just go with it, really, And like, it started off with the very first scene in the play was where the couples meet, and then you just take it from there. You just see where that leads you, really. But yeah, it's primarily about but it's also kind of funny. Sorry, it sounds like quite serious, but I like to use humor a lot in my work, because I think that makes it more accessible. Number one, it makes it more entertaining, because who wants to go to something where you're being kind of lectured to? So I like to use humor in my work, because I feel that makes it more accessible, and also I think then you open an audience out more, to other aspects that may not be so funny, really. Like, say, for instance, if you go to see a play about something really serious, you might think, well, yeah, that is a really important subject. Yeah, I really want to go see that play, but you'll find ways of not going to see it, because maybe you don't want to put yourself through, that kind of emotional stuff. Whereas I think if by using humor, I think that makes it more accessible. People come along, they open themselves out more, and then when you bring in the more serious stuff, they're, in a way, hits them more, rather than if they go in with a kind of self-protecting, So it's essentially it's about people, and sometimes we think you know, people are more different from us than they really are. And sometimes when you get, you know, when you get under the surface, you know, we can be quite similar in ways that we mightn't have thought. So yeah, so it's about all those kind of, and it's about relationships. So that's the other thing. I love writing about relationships. And yeah, and you know, just the whole, you know, madness of being in a relationship with somebody. And so I like to look at that, and ongoing relationships, because think a lot of the time in drama, you know, you have people getting together or people breaking up.
Yeah.
So I'm often interested in, well, the bits in between,
the highs and lows. And,
and so what happens, like the actual living with somebody, the actual, you know, So yeah, and that's one of the things that I deal with, you know, in the play too. It's about just the whole business of relating to another person, really.
Yeah. You said you really love the working on the characters and developing them. Is there any favorite character you have in the play?
I shouldn't probably say this, but I've written like the two characters, the lesbian couple in this play. They're called Jessica and Jess, but they're similar to another couple I've written about, which are Rachel and Fiona. And I've written a trilogy of plays about that couple. I love them. I love writing for them. They're really, I could write. Like when I did the play originally, I did an audio version of it, and it started out with just the scene in the waiting room, and then I gave it to like a script editor that was working on the radio show, and she was an actor, and she'd actually kind of done a rehearsed reading of a play with those characters, and she said, to me, like, why don't you do more with those characters? And I thought, she said, like, you could just kind of take stuff from the other plays you've written. And I thought, no. I thought, gosh, no, I'll write more scenes. And so that's actually how the play developed, because originally it was just that opening scene, and then I did, you know, I kind of followed the journey. But yeah, they're probably my favourite characters. I probably shouldn't say this, like having favourite children. And but yeah, I kind of love writing for them, because I kind of feel I know them so well, really.
Yeah. So you kind of grow closer the more you write about them.
Oh yeah, you do. And like, say when you work on a play, like say when I work on this play now, I'm back with those characters, and it's like I miss them. You know what I mean? I miss them when that play is over. You know, and so and because like last year we did a play, that play When Rachel Met Fiona, which features those characters. When that was over, and then I did a second play with those characters, and then I've done other stuff in between. So coming back to them here now, I was thinking, oh great, it's like old friends, you know. So yeah, so I enjoy. And then it's kind of interesting because I'm working then with another couple, you know, Adam and Sarah, and so so that's kind of interesting for me too. Then, so it's like, you know, it's like the best thing about meeting old friends and then meeting new people. So yeah, it's perfect, really.
Yeah, nice. Where would you get the inspiration for your plays? Is it? I remember reading that for one of your other plays, you got the inspiration from a newspaper article.
Yeah, that was the play we just did in Dublin, Tender Mercies. Just before I came here, and that was a solo show. I did a play a couple of years ago about the marriage. Like in Ireland, we had a marriage equality referendum. Yeah. I think we're the only country, probably in the world, where we voted. You know, because that's our political system. And it was like suddenly everybody had loads of gay friends and were being super liberal. And I was thinking, my God, I've lived in this country my whole life. How come I never met these people before? Suddenly everybody was like, had somebody gay that was their best friend. And so I wrote a play called Yes, which followed, you know, 4 characters who were canvassing, because people went out and canvassed, you know, for a yes vote. And, you know, like a lot of people suffered awful homophobia, like, you know, when they were going out to people's doors, and it was really tough. So I wrote a play about that. And one of the characters in it was the mother of a young gay man. And the producer of that play, who was also my partner, said, you should write a play for this actor, Denise. And I was thinking, no, I don't really do that. I don't really write plays like for people, but then I saw a headline in a paper about a woman who had laid dead in her apartment for a year. Well, over a year, they don't really know how long, over a year before anybody found her. And then that was only, her twin brother actually found her. And that was only after the building society contacted him because he'd guaranteed her mortgage, and she was on disability benefit. She was on medication, which which you had to get from the pharmacy, and yet
nobody realised.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I wrote a play about that woman called Tender Mercies. Yeah. And but it's funny too, because that sounds like, I mean, it's a difficult play. Exactly. And it's kind of funny. And so I did that play, 2016. And then we did it. We have a festival in Dublin called Seen and Heard, which is a festival of new work. So I did like 2 performances of it there, and then the actor was from another part of Ireland, Waterford, so we went down and did it in our local theatre, and we had intended to tour it, but it just didn't happen. And then, by kind of happenstance, the theatre I've done some work with in Dublin, the new theatre, heard about it, and so we decided to put it on, and so we did it again with a different actor. And so the first time I did it, I directed it, and then the second time, another director who has loads of experience. Like, she's been Caroline Fitzgerald, her name is, and she's been 60 years in the business, and she's worked with everybody. Like, when I was promoting the play, I used to say she's worked with everybody in the business and then me. But anyhow, and so that was great. So that was really good, because again, it was like I really liked that play, because it's about somebody, a character, say, you might meet in the street, who would be all talking to herself and looking kind of crazy, and you think, oh my God, I hope that person doesn't look at me or talk to me or sit beside me in the bus. And I mean, I'd be like that. Could be me in the morning. And I kind of thought, well, that person wasn't always like that. And so what I wanted to do was really show that, when you see somebody at their worst, really, that they weren't always like that, and what might have happened to make it that way. So so that was, anyway, it's a long way to explain. That's how I got my inspiration. It's really, like I always say, don't tell me anything, because because you just, something comes into your head, or I don't know, I think writers are like magnets. Somebody can just tell you something. You can have a chat with somebody, and you just think, oh God, that sounds interesting, and it just kind of stays with you. And then you might come up with a character, or that's what happens for me. Then it's just, I think about like I was saying to you about like, I like looking at the bits in between. Like, say for instance, in my trilogy, my Rachel and Fiona trilogy, the second play is called No Promises, and that's after they break up. So I'm not interested in the breaking up, but how do you deal with that afterwards? Like, you know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. So I don't know, just or you might read something, or someone tells you something, you just absorb all this stuff, and then it comes back out again. So that's, for me, that's how it happens, really.
It's really, really interesting, like the creative process. Really, I think it varies from person to person, but you kind of absorb.
And sometimes I look at things, and like, say, when I'm come here and watch the play, I know I've written the play. Obviously I have written it, but I don't know where it comes from. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what made me think of that, actually. So when people ask you a question, you feel you have to come up with some kind of an intelligent answer, but really sometimes I don't know, actually. And sometimes I think, did I really write that? And it's like, I don't know. I think it's like I would be quite analytical as a person, but I think when I write, it's a different side of me. And sometimes you don't know where it comes from. You know what I mean? I know I've written the thing, but why, I don't know, or how. You hope it just keeps on coming, Do
you think you will meet Rachel and Fiona again in the future?
Well, I've got a third play to write. I have. So I've written the first 2 plays, and I've started on the third play. And so so it's a bit like, so that will track. That's like a trilogy. So I really want to complete that. And then I have a similar play, actually, which we're probably going to be doing in Dublin next year. We'll be doing a rehearsed reading this year. It's called Family Tree, and that features the same 4 characters as in Fingers Crossed.
Okay.
It's kind of like a different story. So
True. Looking forward to that one.
Hopefully get to see it.
Is there anything you hope the audiences will take away from the play, Fingers Crossed?
I suppose like say for instance when I did Tender Mercies, my neighbours came to see it from where I live, and they wouldn't be big theatre goers. And one of the guys came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, he said, I could really identify with that." He said, 80% of that I could totally identify with." And I think that's what I want to do. I always want to touch somebody. To me, like when I go to the theatre or cinema, actually, I want to feel something. I want, and so, yeah, I suppose I want to connect with the audience. I'd like the audience to think, oh yeah, and I never, so hopefully people who've, had fertility problems, they'll identify with it and think, yeah, that's what it's like, and see themselves, see something, some part of yourself that's important that you don't see reflected in the culture. And I think that gives people validation then. Or else you get somebody to see something a different way, like that they never thought of. So so I suppose I want them to feel, yeah, God, yeah, that's just like us, or that's just like my sister, or they can really connect to the subject and see it a different way. Yeah, and I hope they fall in love with the characters, because I totally fall in love with them. I love them, I love the characters. I love watching them. So yeah, I hope they fall in love with them. Yeah, that's right. I'm a romantic at heart, you see. Yeah, so
you'd say, yeah.
That's what I like. Yeah.
Well, let's hope. I'm sure that will happen on Friday. Colette, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you for answering all the questions and giving us an insight into your writing process and your life. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Friday. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, and thanks again for having me, and taking the time to have this chat. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Me too.